I have started many of my conversations that are crucial conversations with the phrase, this might be really tough to hear. I want to talk to you about something, and it's probably going to be tough for you to hear, but I'm asking for permission to step in your life to help make you better.
Well, welcome back to Made for More podcast, leadership podcast on all things leadership, from your church to your business, to your family, to your friend group, anything and everything leadership. You know, we are really excited about this season and episode 2, all about crucial conversation. Who loves crucial conversations, right?
Nobody does. But if you are in leadership, you have had to have crucial conversations with people.
Absolutely.
And we all know the times that we have avoided the conversation we should have with them. And we know that was a major mistake.
For sure.
And so I am terrible at crucial conversations. I hate it. And that's why I'm going to talk a lot with Bobby. If you don't know, Bobby and I, we lead the church together. A lot of times I'm like, Bobby, can you please have this conversation? Because you're so good at crucial conversations. We have offices right next to each other.
You're too kind.
And so I get to kind of eavesdrop on his crucial conversations, and he's really good at it. But it's something I've had to develop. And there are times that you are going to have to step into people's lives and have a conversation with them, and it's not going to be easy, and you feel the pain. And if you're like me, then you don't sleep the night before and you're tossing and turning. And I have come to like write out notes, and like I'll do my notes app and like, what do I need to say? What's the approach?
Yeah.
What do I do? So don't think this is something that's like, I've got it down. This is something I've worked on for probably literally a decade plus now. Hopefully I'm getting better at it. So we're going to talk all things crucial conversations.
Absolutely. And you know, I'm able to speak to this because I've had so many crucial conversations.
Well, and I've had to have so many with you.
Yeah, I've been the recipient.
Yes.
So you can learn from me because I've been on the receiving end. But here's the thing is I think personality does come into some of this, and we'll kind of dig into that a little bit. But let me just preface all of it with, if you enjoy confrontation, then there's a different podcast that we'll be releasing in the future. And so this isn't the podcast episode where we're going to give you permission to bully your team members and all of that. However, it provides clarity. And I think that's the big thing, is that crucial conversations put out into the open and clarify what's really going on. Because at the end of the day, so many people, managers and team members, there's this great divide because we want to encourage, we want to be life-giving, we want to, give those affirmations. And because of that, a lot of times all of that is done at the expense of us clarifying some of the things that need to be improved on, some of the issue points, some of the things that really need to be developed. And so we're going to dive in throughout the day and get really, really practical. But here's the deal, is none of us, nobody listening, whether you're a mom or dad, and this is to do with your parents, or with your kids, or with your parents for some of you, those in-laws out there.
That's very crucial conversation.
Just kidding. Your employees, your team. I mean, human beings cannot escape crucial conversations. And
we've all had those moments where somebody had a crucial conversation with us. At the moment, it offends you and hurts you and frustrates you.
Yeah.
And you walk away going, that's going to make me better. I call it the spinach and the teeth conversation.
Yeah.
Have you ever had those moments where you have that spinach in your teeth and you get in your car and you look in the rearview mirror and you go, why didn't somebody tell me?
Just say something.
And say something. Yeah. And now there is a personality that loves to say it. And that's a bigger issue.
Yes.
They love to call out the issues with everybody. Most of the time they're 8s on the Enneagram. They're just the wrecking balls that are awesome. They're great, crucial team members, but this is a podcast that's going to really help all of you who dread crucial conversations. So we're going to break it down in a couple different categories, a couple different keys that I've learned. And we'll start with just this first one, that when it comes to a crucial conversation, timing is everything.
Yes.
Timing is everything. If you have the conversation immediately, you're usually too angry. You haven't thought it through. Your approach is going to be wrong. And that's where really a lot of the conversations go wrong, where you go, okay, I am so mad, I'm going to do it. It's like when you want to send the text so bad, you probably shouldn't send the text.
Yes.
When you want to send the email like so bad and you're typing and your fingers are like getting a workout when you're typing, you're so angry.
Yes.
When you are so angry about the conversation, that is probably when you shouldn't have it. By the way, in marriage, we call this a timeout. So a timeout is where you are both so heated and so upset that if you say anything, you're going to say something that's stupid and that is going to hurt the relationship. So we'll do a timeout. And that's normally 30 minutes, an hour, go to your separate ways, and then let's come back, have a conversation. Funny story is a guy in a church, I did pre-marriage counseling. He's one of our business leaders at the church now. God has changed his life in amazing ways. He used to just walk dogs. That was his job. Hey. Oh yeah, that was a cool job, but he was always an entrepreneur. He just didn't know how to make it work.
Yeah.
So anyway, I do pre-marriage counseling with him and his wife, and before they got married, and I talked to him about a timeout. Like, hey, you got to have crucial conversations. You got to resolve problems, but you don't have to do it right away. So we go see him the next week. Then we had their second session. She says, I need you to talk to him. And I said, what? What's the problem? She's like, we were in an argument last week and he pulled a timeout. And I said, okay, and what's the problem? She's like, he hasn't talked to me in 3 days.
Wow.
So he was like, it's not an indefinite timeout. Like, that's not okay. So it's the same thing with a crucial conversation. Like, you want to make sure that timing is everything, but also you don't want to wait too long. When it's way too far past it, you miss the tension, you miss the pain point. It's like disciplining your kids. Like, you don't want to discipline them immediately because you're angry, but you also don't want to discipline them 2 days later where they go, what are you punishing me for?
What's even the issue? Yeah. I think timing is a very vital part of all of this. What I'd like to do is get really practical and dig into this, because a lot of times people know when they're, they could feel, they can kind of read when there's a crucial conversation coming, and you have a certain group of people that are going to kind of almost be a little pesky to their leader on, hey, what is it that I saw you scheduled a meeting? Can we just talk now? Or they text you. We're in a highly relational environment with our organization. Like, we have friendships, we have relationships, and so sometimes we can bypass some of those normal kind of not that there's a dictatorship or anything like that, but we want to really honor those lines of support, because timing is, we've all reacted too quickly. We've all overreacted because it was the wrong time. We've all allowed it, like you said, Pastor, and we've allowed it to go too long to where it doesn't really carry the same weight. But let's talk really quickly on the topic of if something happens and someone is expecting, and they might not word it that way, but if a crucial conversation is being scheduled and then someone catches you in the hallway, hey, I noticed that you wanted to talk about this. Can we just talk now? How do you approach those types of scenarios?
The weight on how important it is determines how it is scheduled. So for instance, hey, I saw that you showed up 5 minutes late to work and I'm frustrated about it. That might be an immediate conversation.
Correct. Yeah.
That is different than the fact of, we have an employment problem. We have an issue.
Yes.
So I would give them a heads up. I would say, you know what? I want to have a conversation and I want to dialogue about your schedule and the fact that I have found that you are constantly late. Now, we don't need to do it now because I want you to think about it. I want to think about it. I'm a little frustrated about it. To be honest, my emotions are too involved. I think you can be vulnerable with them.
Sure.
But hey, we're going to have this conversation and I want you to be prepared for it. And I want to be prepared for it also. It gives them some time, and I think it's helpful to them. Put the date on the calendar. What I do is I am a natural avoider. And I think time heals. Time does not heal anything. Yeah. Time does not fix relationships. Time does not fix character flaws.
Wow.
Time exasperates the problem.
Yeah.
So what you think time is going to fix, time is actually compounding the issues. So don't let time fix it. You decide when you're going to fix it and when's the most appropriate time to get it done. And when you put that date on the calendar, stick with it. All right, now we've got the date on the calendar. So you're going to have the conversation. You're not going to avoid it. Now we're going to talk about approach. And Bobby, this is what you're so good at. You're so kind. At the same time, you actually hit it the right way. My approach is most of the time wrong, because my approach is, everything's amazing. Everything's awesome. I love you. It's so great. And maybe if you can just show up on time, that'd be cool. And then everything's just amazing. But approach really, really matters. The other extreme is people that come in there with the hammer and they're just going, all right, I'm going to tell you every way that you are a horrible person. That is also not a good conversation. Jesus was a master at approach.
Yes.
Jesus had the same message, yet approached every audience differently. He would approach the Pharisees one way. He would approach the Samaritans another way. He would approach the Jewish people another way. He'd approach children another way. He'd approach his disciples another way. Same message, different audience. The audience dictates the approach. So when you're actually spending more time focusing on who is the person I'm talking to and what's the approach that's going to work for them. Because the way I can talk to Bobby, it's very different than the way I can talk to a random staff member at the church or a random person on the team or someone that attends the church. I have a girl that's worked with me, 6 years. She's been my assistant. She's unbelievable. She's amazing. And it's funny because I can talk to her in a way that is, she's kind, she's easy. She shows very little emotion. So I can talk to her in like a way that's pretty blunt.
Yeah.
But then she'll tell me, she's like, hey, you really scared that other girl the other day. And I'm like, what? She's like, no, you scared her because you talked to her in a very, very intense way. And I'm like, I'm a nice guy.
I'm a nice guy.
But approach matters.
It really does. I think a big one here is, especially we're talking to leaders. And so your leaders, again, managing people, whether they're your employees, whether it's your family, whatever God's called you to lead. And that is so critical, that approach being, you referenced Jesus being so masterful at this, is that it's truth and love together, combined. So we don't want to be so affirming and so positive, so encouraging that they don't actually hear what we're trying to address as the issue. At the same time, we're not there to cripple someone. The wording that we would use in that love component of truth and love is that we want to clarify. We want to bring clarity. That's the truth piece. They got to hear what the issue is. But we're also there not to be critical. We're there to critique. You've done this well, even with me. It's like, it's not something that we're there to, knock their feet out from under them, kick them while they're down. You really messed up this issue. But we are going to critique some of the things, the behaviors. It might be an on-time issue. It might be the way you speak to someone. It might be your performance in the way that you hit deadlines, or whatever the issue is. We have to bring clarity, the truth side, but with love, with some critiquing and not criticism. I think that's very, very key.
Okay, so if you're going to have a crucial conversation, have it in person.
Yes.
I need you to understand this. You do not have crucial conversations on text messages. You do not have crucial conversations on emails. You do not have crucial conversations on Slack. You have crucial conversations face to face. I think they say about 80% of all communication is nonverbal, meaning that it's facial expressions, it's tone, all of that matters. So what we do is we have crucial conversations face to face. So I had some people in the church upset with me. People are upset with me all the time, but I don't know how it's possible. But my response was, they wrote me this email, and they're a group of guys, and they were just, I can't believe you did this. And I said, well, let's have a conversation about it in person. Well, no, I'm just really mad that you did this and this and this, and I want you to know how this was wrong. And I kept responding, I understand. Let's have a conversation in person. Finally, they agreed to a conversation in person, because I'm not going to have a crucial conversation. It's never going to get resolved that way, because you can't see me. You can't understand my tone. Yeah. So I'm going to approach it in person. I'm going to make sure that I approach it with, I love it. It's love, it's grace, but it's also a lot of truth. So the sandwich method is awesome. Sandwich method works really well. Sandwich method is, you're doing this well. I want to be very clear on how you're winning. But I also now, in the middle of that, I want to bring correction so that I am very clear with what needs to improve. And then I'm going to end it with, hey, there's hope. I can see the potential if you fix this middle thing. So the two sides of it, it's the sandwich. The two pieces of bread are both encouraging. One is, I'm encouraged by who you are. I'm going to bring the middle part, the meat of the conversation is what? It's how we need to fix this thing. And then the ending is the potential on the other side if you fix it. Live with that model. That's a great model to have, to go, I'm going to go into every conversation with the sandwich method. We actually kind of joke around with our staff now, because they've heard the sandwich method for so many years, that they'll sit down in a crucial conversation and they'll go, hey, can we just skip the sandwich method and go right to the meat? And I'm like, no. I want to tell you how awesome you are, how much I see in your life, how proud I am of you. I do want to bring correction. And one of the things, Bobby, you've helped me a lot with is I will really make that piece of meat, that middle of the sandwich, really, 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 really small and
like
not very clear.
Slice.
Yeah, it really is. It's like
Publix deli,
a Publix deli slice that's shaved.
Shaved.
Not good. And you were so good at going, I'm going to be overwhelmingly clear. Clarity is kindness in leadership.
Yeah.
The more clear you can be, the kinder you are to them, because they're not going to improve unless you clearly tell them how to improve.
Absolutely. I think another big thing, and again, I don't want to box people in with, like you mentioned, Enneagram earlier, the various personality profiles and assessments that are out there. We do all of those. We've researched all those. So I'm a big fan. However, I think, we don't want to box people into that.
Right.
At the same time, it is important as leaders to know your people. And the same way that, we have multiple kids, you have a lot more than I do, but our children are different. The way that I talk to my oldest son versus my younger son, though they are raised in the same home, they have the same last name, they're a part of the same team, they receive things differently. And me as their dad, I adapt to them. I'm not just a command and control and expect them to adapt to me. So I'm not saying that you have to beat around the bush or anything like that, but just know who you're talking to.
Yep.
Know the age and stage of life. What's going on in their personal life? Is there something that has gone on to cause this issue to happen? Do we need to be a little bit more sensitive? Do we need to be a little bit more empathetic because we know that maybe there's an illness that one of their family members are struggling with, versus someone who is a repeat offender of the same thing, and you're dealing with a year or so into this. That is going to change the approach. Like, we as leaders, it's not just this vacuum conversation. It has to be intentional based on the real practical side of what's going on behind the scenes.
I have started many of my conversations that are crucial conversations with the phrase, this might be really tough to hear. I want to talk to you about something, and it's probably going to be tough for you to hear, but I'm asking for permission to step in your life to help make you better.
Yeah.
And I've asked for that. I remember one of my favorite people in the world. He's still one of my favorite people in the world. And he was our worship pastor for a long time. He got an opportunity to speak, and he listens to this podcast. So I know he's going to text me as soon as he hears this, and I'm not even going to tell him I talked to him about it. But he got an opportunity to speak to our youth ministry. This is years ago, the year 3 of the church or so.
I remember.
And he preached in this youth ministry. So I'm like his spiritual dad. Like, I love this guy so much. So I'm sitting there on the front row while he preaches to these 30, 40 teenagers, and he was ready to bring it. And I've never heard a more inappropriate message to teenagers in my entire life.
He was wanting to be culturally
He
relevant.
was trying, he's the most godly guy. And yet at that moment, he thought, this is the perfect sermon to bring in Drake. He literally starts doing all these references and talking about doing songs. And I'm sitting there cringing, and I'm going, why are we teaching our teenagers this stuff? And it's like inappropriate stuff like, your parents are dumb and stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So anyway, I was hot mad, hot mad. So I left it till Monday. I wrote out some notes, brought them into the office, and I said, hey, let's have a conversation. And this is going to be a little tough for you to hear. I know you really tried. I know you did your best at preparation. I know you took that opportunity serious. And honestly, I saw your notes. I saw how you were doing that. I knew that you were not making this out to be a flippant thing, but you bombed it. And I want to show you how. So again, sandwich method. And I did it. And that guy in my office just starts crying. I can't believe I did this stuff. So I'm now approaching this. Okay, now this is a moldable moment. And if you ask him, he says, this is a top 5 crucial conversation that ever happened in his life. He needed the correction, but I had to approach it the right way at the right time. Don't dance around it. So those things matter a lot when it comes to the approach. Hey, I'm asking for permission. My pastor always said it this way. He says, you can only walk into someone's life the amount they will allow you.
That's very good.
You can only step into someone's life the amount they will allow you. So when you ask for permission, can I have permission to step into your life and to bring some correction to help you get better? Now the door is open for you to have the conversation with them. And so that matters a lot. Let me just give you a couple more keys on approach. Be very careful with exaggerated terms. Always. Never. Hate. It's like, I got called out on that one the other day. Like, hey, you told them you hate this thing. Do you really? I'm like that's the same phrase you use for sin and the devil, and you're using it for the graphics that's behind you on the screen. Like, I don't know if that's appropriate. So
very good. Yes.
Be careful. You're always late. No, you're not. You were just these few times.
Yeah. You've been late a couple of times. I think the exaggeration is, and that, by the way, happens a lot when we're reacting.
Yep.
When we've allowed our frustrations to reach a point where they've hit this pinnacle, and then there's this tipping point that takes place, and we over exaggerate because, it's hit the fan. And so we're just going to deal with it right there. And that is the wrong approach. But unfortunately, a lot of times leaders, that's the place you get to if you don't have a healthy relationship with having crucial conversations. Just really quickly before we get too far along, just because I know a lot of business leaders, a lot of pastors out there are parents. Yep. You have 5 children. Yep. I think you're very good at the parental side of this too. Can you just highlight some of those key points in dealing with children?
Yeah, well, I think us, my wife and I, we've had to have multiple crucial conversations with our kids, and just about life, about sex, about the church, about people that hurt us, those kind of things, about their own tensions and battles with each other. 5 kids, there's a lot of drama. Our thing is we always try to start those conversations in prayer. We always try to start those conversations knowing that our kids know that we're on their side. We never do those conversations when we're angry. We actually let the tensions calm down so that we do that. Because when I'm angry, I'm not going to say what I need to say that's right. Yeah. And I do the sandwich method with my kids. I always celebrate who they are. I correct where it needs to be corrected, and then I'm going to end them with celebration so that they are affirmed in who God's called them to be. I'm in their corner. I'm never to beat them down. I'm going to build them up. So I think those kind of things really matter a lot.
Great.
Let me just say one more thing about approach is make sure you say the last 10%. This is huge, that many times you will dance around what you want to say and you go, I'm sure they got it. I'm sure they understand what I meant.
Yes.
Forget what you meant. What did you say? Is it in writing? Is it very clear that this behavior is not okay? This is what we're going for. This is the change I want to see happen. Be very, very clear, because if you don't give them that last 10%, what you're going to do is you're going to walk away. They're going to go, that wasn't that bad. Yeah. You're going to walk away going, I think they're going to change, and they were never changing, and it's a missed expectation.
Absolutely. It's almost like the game of telephone, where someone's saying the same thing around a circle, that the interpretation is huge, which I think brings us to a good point to talk about. We've hit the timing right. We've had the right approach. How do we follow up? What is the next step in dealing with this? To lead them to the next level. Okay.
So we're going to go to the follow up, and to get there, I think there's one statement that needs to be made before the conversation ends. And this is a game changer statement. What did you hear me say?
It's very good.
What did you hear me say? All right. If you were to sum up this conversation, what did you hear? Because for follow-up to happen, we got to be on the same page.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that a crucial conversation happened. I think it's interesting, for the conversation to be a crucial conversation, you got to talk about something that's actually crucial.
Yeah.
So what actually was said? So I want to hear from them, and I want them to go, oh, what you just said was, and by the way, this is a good practice in marriage where you actually respond hey, without saying your response, just tell me what you heard. Because what they hear and what you're saying could be very different. So once we've very clearly identified what's been heard and we're on the same page, now we're going to put follow-up on the page.
Yeah.
Because if you don't follow up on it, then what happens is they leave there and go, my leader was emotional, my leader was frustrated, my leader was having a bad day, but this isn't actually an issue. It's actually an issue if there's another date on the calendar where we're going to circle back to this, because we're actually going to follow up to make sure it gets better.
Absolutely. And I think that's where, we miss it a lot of times and this again is you have to think about the people that we're leading, because a lot of times what you mentioned, which I think is a lot of leaders out there, you're fretting over it the night before, you're making some notes about it. And the destination for a lot of leaders is getting to the conversation.
Yep.
That can be a very self-focused way of approaching it. Whereas this is to better the people that God has given us to be on our teams, to be in our families, all of those things. And so these critical pieces of timing, so that we don't overreact, so that it's not in a place that we're going to just spew all of our reaction over someone, the approach and how we deal with that, the way that we follow up, all of these ingredients kind of come together to really make almost a lifestyle of crucial conversations. And I like the way that you said it. And I know we're coming to a time, but that not all crucial conversations are created equal. And I think that's big, dealing with some just cultural alignment, some course correction. Hey, I've noticed that you've really briefly that we had a guy that he talked all the time, and I love it. He has great things to say, but what was happening is that people and the rest of the team didn't have any margin to speak. And so that wasn't a big meeting. That wasn't during a mid-year review or an end-of-the-year review. It wasn't this monumental conversation. It was, hey, we're about to go into a meeting. Just being real with you, you tend to talk a lot and you have a lot of great things to say. However, the other guys aren't talking. And that's been a course correction. It was an easy thing. Yep. And then you have those really elevated things that we can take more serious. But
a couple things on follow-up, just as we close it out, is if I have a crucial conversation with somebody, I'm going to text them later that day, the next day. Just want you to know, appreciate your heart. I appreciate your time yesterday. I appreciate the fact that you were open and listening and you allowed me to have a voice in your life. We're going to get better because of this.
Yeah.
They want to know after the dust settles, is my leader in my corner? Do they got my back? And I remember my pastor had so many crucial conversations with me. I mean, just moments where I had blown it, and he would bring me in his office. He would have the hard conversation. And then he'd go follow up with, and by the way, we're going to hang out tomorrow, or we're going to connect, or we're going to come back to this in a week. And I'm going to train you to get you better in this area. I always knew that he had my back. And people, listen, they want to know that your primary focus is the organization getting better, but are they getting better? And when you believe in them, when you're building them, then eventually it'll build the organization. Have the crucial conversation. Make sure the timing's right. Make sure the approach is right. And make sure there's some follow-up with it. And let me just end with this. Your job is to make the employee better. And that is done through hard, difficult, frustrating conversations. But when they're done right, everybody gets better. When they're done wrong or avoided altogether, the situation gets exasperated and is never resolved. So if you're thinking about that conversation right now, just have it and hear me out. And I know there's some people that are listening to this that are not spiritual people. They're not Christians. So just understand this. This is an unfair advantage we have as Christians. As Christians, we have the power of the Holy Spirit. And before I go into a crucial conversation, I'm going to pray. And I'm going to ask God for wisdom, for the right words to say, to avoid the wrong words, for the right approach, and let the Holy Spirit lead you and guide you. It's going to be great, and it'll work out better in the end. All right, that is the end of this episode. You truly are made for more, and I look forward to seeing you and being a part of next month's episode. Make sure you subscribe, like it, and share it, even on social media. If you don't follow us on Instagram, make sure you do that, and just let us know how these episodes are helping you, and we'll see you next month.